This is lines 72 to 77. It's the last few lines of Orpheus and Eurydice, the account by Ovid in his Metamorphoses, and at least the end, according to many of the readers, including the Love and Transformation reader by Dr. Rick Lafleur. And Orpheus is now dealing with the second death that he's caused of his wife Eurydice, and so he is described as begging and wanting or wishing to cross again, but frustra, in vain. And then we get the subject in our verb. So the portator, so the gatekeeper, the ferryman Charon, had prevented or kept him away. And again, the accusative him here, Orpheus, is described as oranteming, begging, and in vain, wishing to cross again. However, now septem diebus, perhaps we would assume the accusative of duration of time, because we really do mean 7 days. Ovid has used the ablative here, which is pretty rare. They're closely linked. We use the ablative of that time within which, so in a 7-day time, and it's in the span of 7 days, he, filthy, unbathed, on the riverbank, said it, without the gift of Ceres. And so the gift of Ceres here could mean a couple things. One is that he's not eating, and so Ceres, we think of Ceres, the goddess of grain, the harvest, etc. The other part is that Ceres' daughter, Proserpina, is the one who allowed Eurydice to be freed, along with Pluto. And so he quite literally is without her gift there, and her gift being Eurydice. So he sat there on the riverbank for 7 days, filthy, unkempt, unbathed, without the offering of the gift of Ceres. And said it there, not said det, the present tense, but said it, and so sat instead of sits. His concern and the grief of his heart, or the grief maybe we could say in his heart, and his tears, fue runt, there's the syncopation, were his nourishment, were his sustenance. Having complained that, and we have essay, the indirect statement here, having complained that the gods of Erebus, the gods of the underworld, were cruel. Now let me take a moment here. First of all, quaeror is deponent, so this is why we're saying having complained, the active. The second thing is we have the indirect statement. So this is the twisted object is what I call this, the subject of the infinitive. The gods of the underworld, we're saying were, because remember we've started out in the perfect tense, and the present infinitive says we have to stay right there in the perfect tense. So having complained that the gods of Erebus were cruel, and that's also ironic because remember just a few lines up, Eurydice falling back, she's the one who's dying again, and Ovid makes it very deliberate in saying that she didn't have anything to complain about except that she had been loved. But here he is, the cause of her second death, and he's the one complaining petulantly, like as if the gods are cruel. So he into we assume the deep, maybe the deep sea or something like that, but then we're going to find out Ray Kippett say. So he takes himself and then into or onto, now not deep, but high or tall Mount Rhodope. And if you remember, this is how he is described earlier, the hero from Mount Rhodope. So the irony there, too, is he's not very heroic because he's failed in his quest. And he takes himself back to Hymus, Mount Hymus, beaten, buffeted by the Aquilons, by the north winds.